All right.
2022. Quite a year, wasn't it? A lot of highly anticipated games came out this year in both the AAA department and the indie scene. So I figured now that 2022 is dead, I'd count down my personal top 10 games that came out this year. Only ground rules are that obviously the game had to have been released this year, ports don't count, and I have had to have actually played the thing. There's a huge chunk of games I haven't played this year because I'm poor on both money and time, but from what I did play, I think I found 10 games that I'll definitely be coming back to. Last thing, this is just my personal list, not a definitive top 10 by any means, so a lot of choices here are based on personal preference and not whether or not they're actually better or worse than each other. So without further ado, let's start with... See what I mean about personal preference? Stray isn't even on the list, and that game was... it was okay. Anyways, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is not really that prestigious of a game, but I've always been a fan of the LEGO games. Well, at least I was more so as a kid. LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga was actually one of my favorite games growing up. So when I saw the announcement that they were not only doing that again, but adding the sequel trilogy, and were also remaking the first two trilogies from the ground up, I got pretty excited. Well, 3 years later, the game finally came out and... yeah, it's pretty good. I'd say this is a step above the regular LEGO affair, because big complaint about most LEGO games is that they're very samey, and yeah, they usually are, just kind of changing the skin and adding one or two new mechanics. But this game is 100% a new feel for the LEGO series of games. It's more of a third-person shooter hack and slash hybrid, neither of which are really that deep, but for the type of audience that this is meant for, it works better than you'd expect it to. The game goes through all 9 films, telling sort of an abridged parody version of the plot for each film. And they're voice acted now too, which at first I wasn't too big on, but after playing it, I did appreciate the style of humor the game has. It's like they're trying to play the film straight, but shit keeps happening on set and they just have to keep running with it without breaking character. Now, whether or not you like every film or dislike any of them in particular, these all being abridged plots make even the worst of these films more enjoyable than they ever were before. My only real complaint about this game is that there's a little too much to collect here. The LEGO games are my favorite types of games 100% and find all the secrets, but in Skywalker Saga, the level structure makes this kind of weird. In addition to the more traditional LEGO stages, there are also like 150 overworlds that all have their own collectibles to get, not to mention how many different types of collectibles there are. This is the kind of game that will take most people a pretty long time to 100%. Some may see this as a good thing, like you're really getting your bang for your buck, but for me, I kind of wish it was dialed back a bit. It's not like Donkey Kong 64 bad, but it's a bit much. Regardless, if you're a fan of LEGO, Star Wars, or even have kids that you want to play a simple game with, this is definitely not a bad choice to pick up. But of course, it's only number 10 here, so don't expect it to be anything more than just a fun time. So I said ports don't count, but remasters? Well, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R's case, it takes an already pretty good game and refines it for a new generation, fixing the issues the game originally had and adding new content. I'd say that's enough for it to count on this list. Based on the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series of manga and anime, All-Star Battle R is a remaster of the PS3 exclusive title JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle. It's a 3D fighter featuring characters throughout the entire JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series, including characters from chapters that are currently manga only. The original game was good enough, but All-Star Battle R does fix a few problems the original game had. For one, it runs smoother and faster than it did before, and has a main campaign that is leagues better than the garbage that was in the original game. As for the content they added, now you have an assist character to throw into battle when need be, as well as a slew of brand new characters to use. Some from the previous JoJo game Eyes of Heaven, and some brand new to any JoJo game. The game is still mechanically sound with every character fitting a different category of fighter. Sure, 75% of the cast uses the series' staple stand ability, but non-stand users still get their own spotlight when they're being used. And there really isn't a character I'd say is bad. Well, mechanically, I mean. The only part that's bad about the game is that the netcode is trash. This is coming from a plebeian Wi-Fi user that doesn't play online games that much, but if you don't have rollback netcode, you might as well not have an online mode. But that's really the only part of the game that I'd say is bad. The gameplay, main modes, and customization is still top tier for an anime fighter. This game is so high up mainly because even though it does qualify for the list, it is a remaster and technically something we have seen before. But that doesn't stop it from being a really fun time. And with there still being 4 paid DLC characters to go, there's good reason to come back to it over the course of the next year. And mark it right now, I am predicting that one of the DLC characters will be the protagonist of the upcoming Part 9 of JoJo. Mark my words, folks, it's going to happen. There's something ironic about Splatoon 3 coming right after a remaster. This is the 3rd game in the Splatoon series, and well, it's more Splatoon, which is good, because I like Splatoon. But it really is just more Splatoon, not much else. There is a new campaign to go through, and I appreciate that it takes more of the structure from the Splatoon 2 DLC, the Octo expansion. It made going through and 100%ing everything that much more fun in my opinion. And the story itself is simple, but it does reveal more lore if you're into that. Gameplay-wise, it's still Splatoon. There's a couple new weapons that I don't really like, but, you know, they're there. All returning items have been rebalanced, and there's new and old maps alike. And hey, at least while waiting for a match, you can actually run around and do stuff instead of just staring at a screen for 8 years. I know it sounds like I'm giving backhanded compliments here, and I kinda am, yeah. But the only reason why I put this above the last two games is because I like Splatoon. And this is more Splatoon. And since it's getting constant updates and we'll continue to get those over the next few years, I will definitely keep playing the game. But if you weren't in the Splatoon before, this isn't going to change your mind. It's more Splatoon, plain and simple. And for me, that was enough for it to be one of my favorites this year. Finally, something that's wholly new. Fuck! Sonic Frontiers is, for all intents and purposes, the next step in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. With the last 4-ish mainline games focusing on the boost formula as its main gameplay focus, Sonic Frontiers opts for this open zone type gameplay, which is basically like an open world, but it's more focused on finding little challenges and whatnot in said zone. That would have been cool if that was the major focus of the game anyways. But they added these cyberspace levels that change back to the boost formula. But all the levels are designed after past Sonic game levels, some of which work like trash with the boost formula. I don't know what they did to this gameplay, but it felt so good in Sonic Unleashed, Colors, and Generations. But in Frontiers, it feels so stiff and not at all freeing. They really should have just stuck with the open zone gameplay because it feels leagues better than the cyberspace levels. It's not like it's perfect though. The combat's fun, but this upgrade tree is just completely pointless. All it does is add things you can do mid-combo, or unlock an easy mode, which was kind of a weird thing to force me to upgrade to. Not to mention that the structure of the open zone is really odd. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of little challenges you can do, but sometimes you'll run into them when you don't mean to, and they'll push you in a completely different direction, killing all flow. Not to mention these stupid fucking bosses. Like, they're fun when you're seeking them out, but the fact that if you're just trying to run by one, you get too close and it zooms in, you have to see their name, and then you just kind of run away from them, it just, again, kills the flow. As for the plot, it's pretty straightforward, kinda. Sonic and friends come to an island where the all-powerful Chaos Emeralds are located, only to be shot down. Sonic, who is being guided by a mysterious voice, finds his friends stuck in between the real world and cyberspace, along with this little girl named Sage who is trying to stop Sonic. So it's up to the blue guy to find out how to save his friends and defeat all the giant creatures that are found on each island. It looks like the game started to take cues from Breath of the Wild storytelling with a mysterious voice guiding Sonic, but for the most part we get the traditional storytelling of a Sonic game. What's interesting though is the focus on the characters themselves. Not like it's anything new, but it feels like they're really trying to apply everything that they have learned in previous games and utilize the character growth that they all should have to this point. Actually, this game is a goldmine for Sonic fans because there's tons and tons and tons of callbacks and references, but in the sense of the characters legitimately talking about it. Like, I've never really heard Eggman talk about Maria at all despite her being his cousin, but this game allows that to happen. Sure, the game has the game has a lot of technical problems with the pop-in and occasional glitches, but really this game makes me excited about the next Sonic game. Hopefully they'll learn from what didn't work in this game and maybe we will finally get the perfect Sonic game someday soon. Sure, Sonic Team is the king of dropping the ball when expectations are high, but thanks to Sonic Frontiers, there's hope again. Another remaster? Well, in JoJo's case, it was a nice remaster to have. In crisiscore Final Fantasy VII Reunion's case, it was a necessary remaster. Going back and playing the original crisiscore is difficult, both because it's on a dead piece of hardware and the game itself is rough. Sure, people who grew up with it will think it's fine, but for everyone else, it's a slog. So with crisiscore Reunion, it updates the game for a new generation. crisiscore is a prequel to the main story of Final Fantasy VII starring Zack Fair and his struggles to not only become a first-class soldier, but also become a hero. The events of crisiscore lead up to the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, so this is technically a required game if you want the full story. Now, a lot of people were worried that because of Final Fantasy VII Remake changing certain things, don't want to give any spoilers, that they would also change aspects of this game. But no, this is the same crisiscore as before, ending and all. I think it was a necessary release because a lot of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is going to have to do with events in crisiscore. So for a new audience, it'll be important for them to go through this game. Luckily, crisiscore Reunion updates the game to flow so much smoother than it did before. Faster too. It feels like a more primitive version of Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat now. Of course, the materia fusion is still here, and being able to equip said materia to use mid-combat is satisfying and makes for a wide array of experimentation with the combat. Now, the game is still designed for portable systems, so the gameplay and mission structure is still set for that. That's That's not like a bad thing, but it could be off-putting if you were looking for something a bit bigger. But hey, I don't know, if it runs well on the Switch, this would be a perfect game for that system. As for graphically, it's a huge improvement from the original game. It's not like the original game looked bad either, this just looks better. But the main thing I hear people complain about with this game is the new voice acting, since they used the all-new remake cast of voice actors. Mainly Zack Fair's voice actor. In the original game, he was voiced by Rick Gomez, and in Reunion, he's voiced by Caleb Pierce. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't think either of them do a completely perfect job with the role, but neither do bad either. I think they both have a really good sound for Zack. Both just have moments where they're a victim of the game's direction. Regardless, I think Caleb does fine in Reunion. More so as older Zack later in the game. He does sound particularly protagonisty in the early game, but so didn't Rick in the original game. So regardless, if you're a fan of Final Fantasy VII, the remake, or haven't played any of them and were looking for an easier game to ease into, give crisiscore Final Fantasy VII Reunion a go. It's pretty much as close as a perfect remaster of this game as we're gonna get.
What is your dream? To become first? Is it?
No. To become a hero.
Ah, good. Unattainable dreams are the best kind.
So as you can tell by this footage, I only got into Vampire Survivors recently, but there's a reason for this. See, I had seen Vampire Survivors before, I liked it, but I thought, man, it'd be cool if I could play this on my phone or something. Lo and behold, at the Game Awards, it was announced that there'd be an iOS port. And yeah, Vampire Survivors is really freaking fun. Everybody I've talked to always has the same thought. Yeah, I guess that looks fun, I can see why people would like that. But then you play it once, instantly addicted. Vampire Survivors is an infinite wave survival game in which your character automatically attacks enemies. You collect XP from the enemies, and every time you level up, you can select an upgrade. This can be new weapons, upgrades to said weapons, or upgrades to your character's stats. And yeah, that's kind of it. It's so simple, and it's that simplicity that makes the game so fun. It's addictive, man. Like every time you die, you just get that feeling of, oh shit, I could have made it further though, causing you to start all over again. Not only that, but the game takes a couple cues from The World Ends With You. The more tasks you complete, the more UI elements unlock. Things like a map, or showing you where certain items are, or even being able to combine weapons for a super strong version of that weapon. And with so many characters and levels to unlock, you just can't not play this game. It's this addictive nature that made me think it was perfect for the iOS. This has also got to be the first iOS game that actually has integrity to it. You aren't forced to watch ads every 5 seconds like most iOS games. It gives you the option to watch an ad to revive once or to get more gold. That's it. Man, who knew it was that easy to not make me hate your game? And to top it all off, of all franchises to unapologetically rip off, they rip off Castlevania, and that is perfectly fitting. And really, the best part is, the game is completely free. At least on iOS it is. So yeah, you have no reason not to get this game. It's a nice, short, horribly addicting fun time waster while you wait for an appointment, or while you're in a car, or while you're waiting for your console to update, or while you're taking a shit. Neon White. Rad as hell art style, awesome music, and amazing gameplay. I wish I could stop there. It should be a testament to just how good Neon White's style and gameplay is to make it this high, because the plot and characters? Yeah. In Neon White, you play as a Neon, sinners pulled out of hell to eliminate demons from heaven, named White, who is stuck in a yearly competition to see which Neon can eliminate the most demons in a 10-day period. The winning Neon gets a say into heaven until the next competition. Oh, but get this, the competition is rigged. Things aren't as they seem. And White has a personal connection to last year's winner, Neon Green. Will White and his ragtag group of tropes be able to survive the game and set things back right in heaven? Now, this might sound like a million other things, and I assure you, it's even more predictable than you think. It's not like it's bad per se, it's just so painfully generic that I can't help but feel that this incredibly unique art style and gameplay is wasted on such a generic plot. Not to mention that the writing is the cringiest cringe that ever cringed. But okay, this is up high not because of how bad the plot is. The gameplay and style is what shot this game up to one of my favorites of the year. Neon White is a speedrun-focused first-person shooter with a card-based weapon system. Basically, your goal in any given level is to kill every demon and make it to the end of the level as quick as possible. You do so by finding weapons on the field represented by cards. They operate like the weapons on the card. Handgun fires like a handgun, machine gunners, rapid fire, etc. But each gun has a unique ability that you can use by discarding the card. So when you discard the handgun, you get to do a double jump. Or the rifle lets you dash forward. Or the Uzi will let you do a big stomp. Discarding for movement options is what make the gameplay of Neon White so fun and addicting. And since you get better tiers of rewards for getting better times, it becomes a game of shaving down milliseconds to get better times. Not to mention, along with this really awesome art style that gives off a really cool 90s anime vibe, the music was all done by the legendary indie artist Machine Girl. As a big fan of Machine Girl, hearing that they were doing the music for this game made it an instant sell for me. And oh boy, does the music deliver in this game. Sure, the plot and writing isn't that great, but the gameplay and style makes neonwhite incredibly worth playing. Hopefully we will get a sequel that can tell a story more fitting to its unique style, because honestly, if it even had a decently interesting plot and characters, this would have been Game of the Year for me.
Hey Red, did you see that?
In the same way that Sonic Frontiers is a new step for the Sonic series, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a new step for the Kirby series. But unlike Sonic Frontiers, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is an extremely solid game that left me wanting more by the time I had finished it completely. In Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Kirby gets sucked into another world. Yeah, that's kind of it. Okay, there's more to it than that, but that's really the base plot, and Kirby goes on to rescue all the innocent little Waddle Dees that got sucked in too, all the while discovering all the mysterious secrets that this world has to offer. This is the first truly 3D adventure platformer for the Kirby series, and man, it works perfectly. All the standard Kirby gameplay is here, but given new life in the 3D environment. But it's not as if being 3D is the only thing the game has going for it. Kirby's copy ability has been given an upgrade in the form of being able to upgrade Kirby's abilities. From getting different sword movesets to making Sleep an actual useful ability, there's a wide as hell variety of copy abilities at your disposal. And if that wasn't enough, you can also suck up large objects for mouthful mode, which basically gives Kirby a whole new control scheme and allow for more context-sensitive ability segments in each level. The amount of content this game has is impressive too. A full campaign, the staple arena modes Kirby is famous for, and, hey Sonic Frontiers, you should be listening here, bonus speedrun challenge levels that don't change the gameplay and are fun? Speaking of fun, the co-op in this game is also really fun. Kinda wish it was just a second Kirby since Bandana D can't use copy abilities, but it's still nice to have the option. When it comes to style, this game is familiar yet fresh. The music is really fun too, all whimsical and whatnot. Not to mention how the game just looks all fun and cute while having a slightly unnerving edge with the fact that this is definitely a post-apocalyptic Earth. Overall, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the Kirby game we needed. After Star Allies, we were getting right on the edge of Kirby starting to feel stale. But this new gameplay style along with the classic Kirby fixings definitely saves the series from that fate. And this is most definitely going to be a Kirby game I'll come back to for years to come. Most anticipated game for the last 10 years. I'm still technically a new fan to the Soulsborne series of games, though I have played and beat all of them, except Sekiro, fuck Sekiro. So Elden Ring getting a release date right after I finished the Demon Souls remake was perfect timing. And yeah, Elden Ring lived up to the hype. Explaining the plot to Elden Ring would take a bit. The plot mostly comes from the opening monologue, item descriptions, and character interactions, all of which are incredibly well written and interesting. But really, it's the same base plot as every other Soulsborne game. Beat all the bosses in the game and become a big badass. Or, in Elden Ring's case, an Elden Lord. Also like every other Soulsborne game, the gameplay is focused on character building and studying enemy movesets so you can figure out the best time to counter them. But it's more than just another Souls game because the game is more like Soulsborne All-Stars. Because they took a gameplay mechanic from every Souls game and put them in Elden Ring. Weapons art from Dark Souls 3, power stance from Dark Souls 2, poise from Dark Souls, stagger meter from Bloodborne, the jump from Sekiro, all with the template that Demon Souls started all those years ago. But that's not all the Elden Ring because it has tons of mechanics unique to itself. Item crafting on the field, riding the horse U-Torrent, plus the biggest open world in any Souls game, and I mean big. Just when you think it's already too big, it gets even bigger. It's almost too big, really. But it's not empty, there's so much to discover and do in the game aside from seeking out all the bosses. Even if a good chunk of the extra dungeons fit one of 4 or 5 templates, they're still fun as hell and always have a fun boss at the end. Even if it's a boss you have fought before, just with some sort of wacky variant to them. The enemy and boss design in this game is that patented FromSoft asshole design where it's fair, but god is it frustrating. Especially in Elden Ring 2. I swear, every fucking boss has a year-long wind-up to their attack that they can just randomly decide lasts 2 years instead of 1 year, so you can never be too sure if you're safe to dodge or not. Which, I get it. This game might as well be Demon Souls 7, so they made the game difficulty as if you've played all these games. But goddamn, it would've been fine if Melina, this game's fuck you boss, was the only one that felt like garbage to fight. But no, there's 8 bosses in the game that felt like garbage to fight. Strength builds need not apply in this game. They really want you to do a magic build in Elden Ring. But this could all just be a me issue. Overall, Elden Ring is proof that there are still developers in the game industry that still care about creating an extremely well-made and fun product rather than the profit that will be made off of it. It may not be my favorite game of the year, but I think that Elden Ring is the best game of 2022 by a technical standpoint. My personal bias, though, draws me to one other game that is my favorite this year. I figured before I get to number 1, I'd mention my honorable mentions in the form of games I did not play that were released this year but plan to eventually. First of all, God of War Ragnarok. I've heard nothing but good things and really can't wait to give it a try. But then again, I haven't played any God of War game. Maybe I ought to play all the other ones first? We'll see. Next is Tunic. I really want to play this one. The art style is so eye-catching and cute, along with the design philosophy of using an instruction manual you can't read to learn how to play the game is so unique. This looks like an indie game that I'll play once and then immediately want to play again. Speaking of cute, Little Gator Game. Again, just such a cute looking game, and apparently the movement feels really good in it. I could see this game being sort of a comfort, turn my brain off kind of game. Sifu. Another game that looks cool. The idea of playing through a kung fu flick is fun, not to mention the aging mechanic. Though I heard it isn't as big of a deal as the trailers made it out to be, still, an in-depth brawler would be fun to play. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 looks fun, I still gotta play 2 though. Shredders looks like it could scratch my extreme snowboarding game itch I've been having. But I think the game I want to play the most is Live Alive. I've always heard about the original SNES game, but never thought it would get a Western release. It looks incredibly unique, I love the variety, and now that it has a remaster, it would be the perfect excuse to finally play it. But alright, it's time for what I consider to be my personal game of the year for 2022. And that is... I wouldn't be surprised if any given person hadn't heard of Signalis. It flew way under the radar. You see, Signalis was developed by Rose Engine, which is literally 2 people, Barbara Whitman and Yuri Stern. They did everything except for the music, which was outsourced to 2 composers, 1000 Eyes and Cicada Sirens. So this is as indie gets, and man, it is one of the greatest games this year. Hell, one of the greatest games I've ever played. In Signalis, you play as Elster, a replica android who wakes up inside of a ship with only one goal in mind: find Ariane, a gestalt that accompanied Elster on a mission prior to the game. What follows is a journey through facilities that are in ruin due to disease and monsters raining through them. But Elster only has one goal: to keep her promise to Ariane. Now, yes, this plot isn't that new or fresh, and one could probably accurately guess where the game is going to go, which was a complaint I had with Neon White, but Signalis takes this plot and messes around with it, slowly revealing how this world works with its society. Political struggles, class systems, even just the daily lives of all these androids. It goes very existential with its horror, especially when it goes into details about Elster's previous mission with Ariane. And it's the type of plot where it's kind of hard to tell what's actually happening, but by the end you'll know emotionally what's going on and why these characters are going through a literal nightmare just to achieve their goals. The survival horror gameplay fits the story perfectly too. It feels like an updated version of the classic fixed camera angle Resident Evil games, especially since this game is a huge send up to classic survival horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. From subtle references like having a room play Moonlight Sonata, to not so subtle references like having the save point literally just be the Silent Hill 2 save point. Not only that, but aesthetically it takes from classic robot android mech anime like Evangelion or Ghost in the Shell, all while making the game look like a late PS1, early PS2 game, complete with optional CRT filters that look cool, if not a little headache-inducing. I will say that the pretty anime aesthetic does kind of get in the way of the game's grotesque nature at times. Not very often, but without giving spoilers, some text blurbs talk about how fucked up a character gets, and when you see them eventually, they're like, not fucked up at all. But that doesn't really matter, because when the art does go gross, it looks really cool. And that music. That music. Eldenring is proof that some developers in the AAA industry still care about what they're making. Signalis, however, is proof that there are still creatives that will make their vision a reality. Rose Engine clearly knew what they like and what they wanted to make, and they made it. It definitely wasn't easy. Signalis was in development since 2014. It was 8 years of development, and they did it because they knew it would be a game that people would enjoy, a game they would enjoy. And that's what I value above all else. That's why I make what I make. Signalis is proof that somehow, some way, people like me will make what they want to make and send it out for the world to enjoy. It really is a shame it came out so quietly and so late in the year. Regardless, Signalis is my game of the year for 2022, and one of my favorite games now for sure. But what did you guys play this year? What were your favorite games? Let me know in the comments. And let's hope that 2023 brings us some bangers, like the Resident Evil 4 remake, Spider-Man 2 hopefully if that's still happening this year, Street Fighter 6, the Dead Space remake, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. That's all happening this year? Damn, this is gonna be a good year.